The darkness was older than stars. It swallowed civilizations whole. And yet, when it met humanity, the shadows learned fear. Before we dive into this story, if you're new here, don't forget to like this video and subscribe. It helps us grow, and it means you'll never miss more stories like this one. Now, lean in close. Because this is not just a story of war or survival. This is the story of how humanity faced something older than the stars themselves, something that turned galaxies into silence. And yet, when it came for us, we did not bow. The void is not empty. That was the first mistake countless civilizations made, thinking of space as a quiet canvas. In truth, the void has teeth. It has hunger. And in the depths between galaxies, where even starlight refuses to linger, something moved. They called it by many names: the devourer, the hollow maw, the black tide. A shadow not of metaphor but of reality itself, a living darkness that consumed not just stars but the will of those it touched. Entire empires, older and greater than ours, vanished when its veil fell across them. It did not come with fleets. It did not speak in treaties. It did not negotiate. It was silence and despair and the end of everything. For millennia, it moved from cluster to cluster. Civilizations that had mastered fusion, teleportation, even the bending of time itself, none survived. To the galactic historians, the pattern was clear. When the shadow came, only extinction followed. And then, it reached Earth. At first, astronomers thought it was nothing more than a dark anomaly, an expanding void blotting out distant stars. The great telescopes of Hawaii and Chile tracked it as if it were some strange absence. But as it crept closer, the satellites of our solar system began to fail, not by mechanical error, but by the quiet unraveling of light itself. In orbit, astronauts described it in whispers, a horizon of black moving with the patience of eternity. It swallowed signals, devoured probes, silenced machines, and always it crept closer. The rest of the galaxy watched. Other species, scarred by its passing, whispered warnings into the dark. Some sent messages urging humanity to flee. Others begged us to prepare for death. And some simply went silent, unwilling to relive the terror. But humanity did not run. Why? Because unlike the others, we had always lived with shadows. From the first time fire crackled in a cave, we had fought the dark. From the myths of demons lurking at the edge of light to the childhood fear of something under the bed, we had always known the void. We had always stared into it and imagined teeth. And because of that, we had always built ways to fight it. The devourer expected fear. It expected silence. It expected a species to dim, to collapse inward as so many had before. What it found was a planet ablaze. Every city lit its skyline in defiance. Every satellite broadcasted signals into the dark. Every human, scientist, soldier, artist, farmer participated in the ancient ritual our species had never forgotten. We lit fires, not just of flame, but of will. Nuclear beacons in orbit burned brighter than the sun for seconds at a time, a billion-candle flare stabbing the void. Space stations, once built for science, became crucibles of illumination, scattering radiation like lanterns in the abyss. Even the oceans joined the chorus, as fleets of ships powered generators to floodlight the seas until Earth glowed like a jewel of stubborn brilliance. The devourer recoiled. For the first time in its eternal hunger, it met prey that did not fold into quiet, but blazed with stubborn, irrational fury. But the shadow pressed on. It thickened around Mars, a tide of nothingness that unraveled probes before they could speak. It swallowed the asteroid belt, silencing mining stations with no more effort than a sigh. And Earth, fragile Earth, stood next. The United Nations, an institution so often fractured, became something else in that moment. Not a committee, not a debating chamber, but a war council. For the first time in our history, humanity acted as one. Not for conquest, not for pride, but for the most ancient instinct we carried, survival. The militaries of Earth prepared weapons not to kill, but to burn. Every missile silo opened. Every nuclear arsenal was retasked. For the first time, humanity pointed its most terrible inventions not at each other, but outward. And yet, in basements and studios, another battle was being prepared. Artists painted walls with radiant colors, knowing the darkness might swallow their city next, but refusing to let it have the last word. Musicians composed symphonies and broadcast them into the void on repeat. Children wrote poems, recorded on fragile signals, carried upward into the hungry black. To the devourer, these acts were meaningless. To us, they were everything. Because humanity had always known one thing that other civilizations had forgotten. Shadows mean nothing unless there is light. And light is something we had in endless supply, not just in physics, but in spirit. When the shadow finally reached Earth's orbit, the first wave of our weapons ignited. Nuclear suns bloomed in space, one after another, hammering the void not with mass, but with brilliance. For hours, the sky was a strobing wound of impossible light. The devourer writhed. It had never known pain. For the first time, it felt its edges recoil, its endless patience fractured. The more we burned, the more it hesitated, and then something stranger happened. The devourer listened, not to our weapons, but to our broadcasts, the symphonies, the laughter, the whispered poems of children who would not see tomorrow. For it was not just a creature of hunger, it was a creature of silence. And to silence, humanity had given voice. The alien species who watched from afar could not believe it. They had thrown armies at the devourer. They had built machines that bent space. They had tried to starve it, trap it, fight it. All had failed. Humanity alone had answered it not with fear, but with defiance born of fire and imagination. The battle stretched into days. Orbit became a storm of light. The atmosphere trembled with heat. Power grids on Earth screamed under the demand. Cities dimming so the stars themselves could shine brighter through weapons. And at last, the devourer broke. Not in defeat, for something as eternal as it could never truly die, but in memory. It pulled back, flowing outward, dragging its horizon of black away from our star. Not because it could not consume us, but because for the first time, the dark was afraid. The lesson was carved into the void. Humanity had no intention of surrendering. And in the silence that followed, as Earth's fires dimmed and cities returned to power, the galaxy whispered something it had never said before. The others had called us fragile, reckless, doomed. But now they called us something else. They called us the lightbringers, not because we had defeated the shadow, but because we had shown the truth. Fear was never the end. Fear was a tool. Fear was a fire. Fear was the spark that turned prey into predators. And from that day onward, even the darkness itself knew. Humanity had taught the shadows to fear. That was the story of how humanity faced the oldest hunger in the cosmos and answered it not with silence, but with fire. If you felt the chills of that battle, let me know in the comments. And don't forget to tell me the city you're watching from. I love seeing this community grow across the world, and if you haven't already, make sure to like this video and subscribe because there are so many more stories like this waiting to be told. Until next time, keep the lights burning.